I wasn't asking for a vacation. I wasn't asking for money. I was asking my parents to watch my twins while I went into surgery. The doctor said it couldn't wait. I was terrified not of the procedure, but of leaving my babies without me. So I called the two people who raised me. Their answer? We're busy. Busy. I explained it again. It was surgery, not a haircut, not a meeting. Surgery. They told me to hire someone. Said I was overreacting. That was the moment I realized something I never wanted to admit. I was completely alone. Or at least, I thought I was. Because what happened next and what my grandfather said changed everything. I never planned on doing motherhood alone. When I found out I was having twins, I remember staring at the ultrasound screen in disbelief. 2 heartbeats. 2 tiny lives depending entirely on me. I was overwhelmed, but also fiercely protective from that very moment. Their father left before they were born. Said it was too much. Too much responsibility. Too much pressure. Too much reality. So it was just me. My parents were around, but not really. They lived 15 minutes away, yet somehow felt miles apart. They loved their image of being supportive grandparents, but the late-night feedings, the daycare pickups, the sick days, those were always inconvenient. I learned quickly not to ask for much. My twins are toddlers now, curious, loud, emotional, and completely attached to me. They don't sleep through the night consistently. They fight naps. They both want to be held at the same time. Every day is a marathon. Still, I managed. I work remotely. I schedule meetings during nap times. I answer emails while stirring mac and cheese. My life runs on coffee and determination. And through it all, I rarely complained. That's why the surgery felt different. It wasn't optional. It wasn't cosmetic. It wasn't something I could postpone for a better time. My doctor looked at me seriously and said, "You shouldn't delay this." For the first time in a long time, I felt small. Not because I couldn't handle pain, but because I couldn't imagine leaving my twins, even for a few hours, without knowing they were safe with someone who truly cared. Hiring a stranger didn't feel right. Not for something this serious. Not when I might be groggy or admitted overnight. I needed family. I needed someone who loved them the way I do. And despite the emotional distance over the years, I believed, maybe foolishly, that this was the kind of moment parents show up for. I wasn't asking for constant help. I wasn't asking them to raise my children. I was asking for one day, one surgery, one moment where I could feel like someone had my back. I truly didn't think that was too much to ask. I called my mom first. It was late afternoon. The twins were finally down for a nap, and I stood in the kitchen staring at my phone for a full minute before pressing her name. I had already rehearsed what I was going to say, calm, clear, not dramatic. She answered on the 3rd ring, cheerful. "Hi, honey." For a second, I almost forgot why I was calling. That familiar tone made me feel like maybe this would be easy. "Hey, Mom, I need to ask you something." Her voice shifted slightly. "What's wrong?" "I have surgery scheduled for Thursday morning. The doctor doesn't want me to delay it. I'll probably be there most of the day. I was wondering if you and Dad could watch the twins." Silence. Not shocked silence. Not worried silence. Just calculating. "Thursday?" she repeated. "Yeah, it should just be one day. I'll pack everything. Meals, clothes, their bedtime routine." "Oh, honey," she interrupted. "Thursday's not good." I felt my stomach drop. "Not good. We already made plans. Your father has golf, and we're meeting friends for dinner." I blinked, trying to process that. "Mom, it's surgery." "Well, can't you reschedule?" "No, the doctor said I shouldn't." Another pause. Then she sighed. "Can't you hire someone? There are babysitting apps now. Or ask one of your friends." My grip tightened around the phone. I don't feel comfortable leaving them with a stranger when I'm going under anesthesia. She sounded slightly irritated now. "You're overthinking it. Women have procedures all the time. It's not like it's life or death." The words stung more than I expected. "I'm not saying it is," I replied quietly. "I just thought, maybe you could help." "Well, we can't cancel everything last minute," she said firmly. "You should have told us sooner." I had told her the same day the surgery was confirmed. Before I could respond, I heard my dad's voice in the background. "What's going on?" "She wants us to babysit Thursday," my mom explained. "For what?" he asked. "Surgery," she said. He didn't lower his voice. She always makes things more dramatic than they are. Something inside me cracked. "I can hear you," I said softly. Look, my dad came onto the line. We love you, but you chose this life. 2 kids. Single mom. You have to figure these things out. Figure it out. I swallowed hard. Okay. That's the spirit, he said, as if I'd just agreed to something empowering. You're strong. You'll manage. The call ended politely, almost casually. I stood in my kitchen long after the screen went dark. The house was quiet. My twins still asleep down the hall. I had called my parents believing, just for a moment, that this would be the one time they'd show up without hesitation. Instead, I was reminded of something much heavier. I wasn't their priority. And when I needed them most, they chose dinner plans. The house felt different after that phone call. Not louder, not quieter, just heavier. I moved through the evening on autopilot, warming bottles, wiping tiny hands, breaking up toddler arguments over the same stuffed animal. My twins had no idea anything was wrong. They laughed. They climbed onto my lap. They asked for one more story before bed. And I held them a little tighter than usual. After I finally got them to sleep, I sat on the edge of my bed staring at the hospital paperwork. Arrive at 6 a.m. No food or drink after midnight. Arrange for a responsible adult to drive you home. A responsible adult. I almost laughed at the irony. I opened my phone and scrolled through contacts. Friends from work. Other moms from daycare. Neighbors I waved to but didn't really know. I typed out 3 different messages asking for help and deleted all of them. Everyone has their own life. Their own responsibilities. Why did asking feel like begging? I walked down the hallway and stood in the doorway of my twins' room. The nightlight cast a soft glow over their cribs. One of them had kicked off her blanket. The other was curled on her side, thumb in mouth. They looked so small. What if something went wrong? The doctor had said it was routine, low risk, standard procedure. But hospitals don't guarantee outcomes. For the first time since becoming a mother, fear didn't feel manageable. It felt overwhelming. I sat on the floor between their cribs and let the tears come quietly. Not dramatic sobbing, just silent exhaustion. I wasn't scared of pain. I was scared of absence. Scared of waking up groggy and not being able to pick them up. Scared of not being there if they cried. Scared of the possibility, however small, that I wouldn't come home the same. I considered canceling the surgery. Maybe I could push through the symptoms longer. Maybe I was exaggerating. Maybe my parents were right. But deep down, I knew I couldn't delay it. So I did the only thing I've ever done. I started making a plan. Because even when you feel alone, you still have to show up. I didn't call him. He called me. It was almost 9:30 that night when my phone lit up with Grandpa. I wiped my face quickly before answering, even though he couldn't see me. "Hey, kiddo," he said in his steady, familiar voice. "You sound tired." "I'm fine," I replied automatically. He hummed softly, the way he always did when he knew I wasn't telling the full truth. "Your mother mentioned something about surgery." Of course she had. "Yeah," I said. "It's nothing dramatic. Just something I need to get done." "And who's staying with the twins?" The question hit harder than I expected. I hesitated. That was enough. "They said no," he asked quietly. I didn't have to explain who they were. "They have plans," I answered, trying to keep my tone neutral. "It's okay. I'll figure something out." There was a long pause on the other end, not confused, not surprised, just disappointed. "In our family," he said slowly, "plans change when someone you love needs help." I swallowed. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't criticize them directly. But the weight in his words said everything. "What time is your surgery?" he asked. 6 a.m. "I'll be there at 5. My first instinct was to protest. "Grandpa, you don't have to." "I didn't ask if I have to," he replied gently. I asked what time. Silence filled my kitchen, but this time it didn't feel heavy. "I can't let you rearrange your day," I said weakly. He chuckled. "Sweetheart, I rearranged my whole life the day you were born." My chest tightened. "I'll stay with the twins," he continued. "I'll pack them snacks. We'll read books. We'll make a mess in the living room. They won't even notice you're gone." Tears threatened again, but this time they weren't from loneliness. "Are you sure?" I whispered. "I'm not sure about many things at my age," he said lightly, "but I'm sure about this." Before hanging up, he added one more thing, calm, firm. "And I'll have a conversation with your parents." For the first time since the surgery was scheduled, I didn't feel completely alone. Because someone had chosen to show up. And that changes everything. I didn't hear the conversation as it happened. But I heard about it later, word for word. Grandpa arrived the next morning exactly at 5 a.m., just like he promised. He walked in with a thermos of coffee, a calm expression, and the kind of quiet authority that doesn't need to announce itself. While I finished packing the twins' bags, he stepped outside onto the porch and made a phone call. He called my parents. My mom answered. "Dad, it's early." "Yes," he said evenly. "It is." She hesitated. "Is everything okay?" "No," he replied. "It isn't." My father got on the line next. "What's going on?" Grandpa didn't waste time. "Your daughter is going into surgery this morning," he said, "and she asked you for help." There was a defensive tone in my dad's voice. "We had plans." She understood. "No," Grandpa corrected him calmly. "She accepted." Silence. Then he said the sentence that would later echo in my mind. "If you can't show up when your daughter needs surgery, don't expect her to show up when you do." No yelling. No insults. Just truth. My mom tried to explain. "It's not like we don't care. Care is not something you say," Grandpa interrupted gently. "It's something you do." Another long pause. "You raised her to be strong," he continued. "But strength is not the same as support. She shouldn't have to be strong alone." My father didn't respond immediately. When he did, his voice had changed, less certain. "We didn't think it was that serious." "She didn't think you'd say no," Grandpa replied. That was the part that stung them most. He ended the call without threats, without drama. Just one final line. "I'll be with her today. I hope next time it's you." When he walked back inside, he didn't look angry. He looked resolved. "What did they say?" I asked quietly. He picked up one of the twins, who had just woken up, and smiled. "Sometimes," he said softly, "people need to hear who they're becoming." And just like that, the power in the room shifted. The hospital lights were too bright. Everything felt sterile, controlled, clinical, the complete opposite of the emotional storm I had been carrying all week. Grandpa walked me to the entrance, one hand steady on my shoulder. The twins were still half asleep in their pajamas, clutching the small stuffed animals I'd packed. He had insisted on bringing them so I could kiss them goodbye properly. I knelt down carefully and hugged them both. "Mommy will be back soon," I whispered, forcing confidence into my voice. They didn't understand surgery. They didn't understand risk. They just knew I was leaving for a little while. And that broke me more than anything. Grandpa gently pulled them close as a nurse called my name. "We've got this," he said firmly. For the first time, I believed it. Inside the pre-op room, everything moved quickly. Paperwork. Vitals. Questions repeated twice. A nurse asked, "Who's your emergency contact?" I paused. "Grandfather," I answered. The word felt both heavy and reassuring. As they wheeled me toward the operating room, fear crept in, but it wasn't the sharp panic from before. It was manageable now. Contained. Because someone had shown up. The anesthesia blurred the edges of the ceiling lights. The last thing I remember thinking was simple. "Please let me wake up." And then everything went quiet. When I opened my eyes again, the world felt slow and distant. Machines beeped softly around me. My throat was dry. My body sore, but intact. "You're out of surgery," a nurse said gently. Everything went well. Relief washed over me so intensely it almost hurt. No complications. No surprises. It was over. A few hours later, I saw him, Grandpa, walking carefully into the recovery room. He looked tired but steady. "How are my girls?" I asked immediately. He smiled. "They made a fort in your living room. Ate too many crackers. Asked for you twice." And I told them brave people come back. Tears filled my eyes again, but this time they weren't from fear. They were from gratitude. Because when I needed someone to hold everything together, he did. Recovery was slower than I expected. Physically, I was healing. The pain was manageable. The doctor said everything had gone exactly as planned. But emotionally, something inside me had shifted, and that part felt permanent. My parents showed up 2 days later. Not at the hospital. Not the morning of surgery. 2 days later. They brought flowers, a grocery bag, an awkward energy that filled the room before they even spoke. "How are you feeling?" my mom asked, too brightly. "Better," I replied. My dad stood near the doorway, hands in his pockets. We heard everything went smoothly. Heard. Not, "We were worried." Not, "We couldn't sleep." Just heard. I thanked them for the flowers. I meant it. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't looking for a fight. That surprised even me. Because something had changed during those hospital hours. I stopped expecting them to be who I needed. My mom tried to explain. We didn't realize how serious it was. I nodded. I know. My dad added quietly, "Your grandfather called us." I know, I said again. There was a long pause, the kind that used to make me rush to fill the silence, to smooth things over, to reassure them that everything was fine. But this time I let it sit, because everything wasn't fine. It was clear. Clear that when I needed immediate support, they hesitated. Clear that when it mattered most, someone else stepped forward. And clarity brings boundaries. They offered to take the twins for a few hours so I could rest. I considered it. But instead, I said, "Grandpa's coming by later." Not as punishment, not as revenge. Just truth. The dynamic had shifted. They weren't my emergency plan anymore. They weren't my first call. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't cold. I was calm. And calm is powerful. As they left, my mom hugged me a little tighter than usual. "We'll do better," she said softly. I gave a small smile. Maybe they would. But whether they did or not, I had already learned something important. The people who show up in your hardest moments. That's your real circle. And now I knew exactly who mine was.